We're at PAX East 2017, catching up with Bethesda here in a very busy booth. Hidden away back here is Pete Hines with a tablet showing off the Elder Scrolls Legends. Yep. A lot of big things happening with the game right now. It's just launched proper. What can you tell us of the sort of the period leading up to the launch? What did you learn during the beta, and what benefits did you have from that?
Yeah, I mean, we spent a fairly long time in beta getting ready for the PC launch, and it was really about a couple of things. Number one was trying to snuff out all the bugs, which were mostly related to like weird corner cases or like card interactions, and making sure that when you play a game of Legends that it worked like it was supposed to. If you were playing a physical version, that all the rules were getting implemented properly. And we think we've hit that point. We've been adding little features along the way. We've been doing a lot of card balancing. We're pretty aggressive about changing card values and what they do to make sure that the metagame stays balanced. You know, we want to have a lot of different kinds of decks, and I think we're in a really good place with that right now. Aggro or control or mid-range or ramp or, you know, whatever it is you want to play. You want to do something where actions matter or, you know, weapon-based stuff. There's lots of different viable deck options all throughout our ladder. And we also wanted to get to a point where we were ready for our other platforms, not just PC. So the PC version is out, but now we've got iPad coming on March 23rd globally. Android tablet will be out early next month in April. The Mac version will be out in May. And then we'll be talking more about the iPhone versions at E3, but you know, we're trying to get those out as soon as we can. A bit more of a challenge with getting the UI to work on a very small screen. But yeah, really pushing to get all the different platforms out, and then new content, and wanting to have new content for folks to play really soon.
What do you find in terms of the audience? Do you find that it's Elder Scrolls fans who are also card game fans? You're getting new sort of card game fans in. What's been the sort of the setup?
It's a really wide range. So you know, I've talked and met with people who don't really know the Elder Scrolls that much, but love strategy card games. You know, they play Magic or Hearthstone or Gwent or whatever it is. Folks that are really huge Elder Scrolls fans and have never tried a strategy card game but decided to try one because it was the Elder Scrolls and they wanted to see what it was about, who have really kind of gotten into it, because it is pretty accessible. It's not we do a good job of sort of teaching you the basics as you play through. It's a game, I think, that's pretty easy to understand what's going on, but there's just a ton of strategic depth that you learn as you go along. Like the lane concept, for example, having a battlefield broken into 2 lanes is not hard to understand. Well, I can play cards to the left or to the right, and so can my opponent, but figuring out how to take advantage of that in the situations in which it makes sense to play to the same lane where you're already building up cards, or you want to diversify and play to the other lane because you want to play around a card maybe you think your opponent has, or to keep them from implementing their strategy, has a lot of strategic depth to it. And so I think that's something about the game that appeals to both of those audiences, whether you're a fan of the Elder Scrolls or strategy card games. There's something there for everybody.
It's an interesting. I gotta say, it's got to be interesting to design a game like this from Elder Scrolls, because there's so much to pull from. Like there's tremendous amount of sort of assets and things that you can pull from the Elder Scrolls. So when you set out to do this, what sort of strategy did you employ? Like, how do you sort of section things off, because you can't bring it all in at once?
So the idea that we had was, to your point, we wanted to be able to kind of play with all of the different parts of this huge world that was so rich in characters and story and locations. The reason we went with the playmat being an Elder Scroll is that, if you know the Elder Scrolls, they tell the past, present, and future. And so in using that as like a storytelling device, it kind of allows us to go wherever we want, whenever we want. So we can set our content and our sets all over the place. They don't have to be specific to a location or a specific period of time. We can go backwards and forwards and jump to different locations, and it all kind of makes sense. So when we do the next set that we have coming out on April 5th, it's called The Fall of the Dark Brotherhood, and it's a brand new story, which is 25 missions. It's a full single-player campaign that you can play through. It's actually longer than the campaign for the base game. That also adds 40 cards to your collection, but we can take that and sit it wherever we want, so that we can bring in characters that you might know, say from Skyrim, like Cicero, or refer to things like the Night Mother. And if you've played the previous Elder Scrolls games, you understand either like, oh cool, I know who that character is, or I know what the Night Mother is. But if you don't, you're not. I mean, you're missing out from like the context, just like you'd be missing out if you don't know about the annoying fan, like the adoring fan, and what that does from Oblivion. You don't get the same like, oh, I remember that guy chasing me down, but you still understand the joke of like this card and what it does and how it works. So it allows us to jump around and tell stories that people can kind of attach to and bring out these elements that they know and remember, or refer back to characters, stuff like that.
I would imagine that for Elder Scrolls fans, that sort of single-player content is really important as well, to get that story, to get that sort of the depth of it. Is that sort of part of how you're going to roll out, continue on with expanding the game with sort of single-player content, or do you have other ideas as well?
So the first one we're doing is the single-player, and to your point, we sort of heard about three things from players when we would talk to them about what they wanted the most. One was other platforms. So we're getting to the iPad and Android tablets and Mac and eventually to phones. Two was they wanted single-player content. They really liked the story stuff and the ability to play single-player. And even the solo arena that we have, personally, when I play strategy card games, I love Limited as a format where it's not about my collection and what cards I have, but it's just sort of showing up to a game and building stuff on the fly. I just find that really fun and challenging. So having a version of that's single player allows folks to experience that without having to worry about like playing against players who are way better than them or have been playing way longer. Like I can play this mode in my own comfort zone. And then the third thing is cards. I want new cards. Well, so the Dark Brotherhood allows us to tick two of those boxes. Here's a bunch more single player content, and it adds 40 new cards. The next thing that we're going to do, and we're going to announce it and talk about it at E3, is a really big new set. A lot more than 40 cards. Be the kind of thing where it'll come with its own packs that you'll open. We are still talking about like when and how to inject more single-player content along the way, even with that stuff. And we really want to kind of see how people react to the Fall of the Dark Brotherhood story. And figure out like what to do a little bit more of, what to do a little bit less of, or to do it different. I mean, the great thing about a digital card game is you can kind of do and change whatever you want anytime you want. You do a physical card game, but once you print that card with that text and those stats, like that's it. You're not sending out stickers to everybody saying, here, put these on, that card is different now. But with a digital card game, we can do that whenever we want. So
but that's not to say there's no consequences, because people could get upset.
Oh, absolutely. But we're also really good about if you've spent time crafting a card. Yeah, I mean, if you have a favorite card that you've built a deck around, of course you're going to get upset. But what's really important to us is to see a lot of variety and diversity. And you're never going to get to a world where every deck is 50-50 against every other deck. That's not realistic. But
it's no fun either.
The closer you can get to that, though, where you've got, not just one or two or three decks, but there's 7, 8, 9 different decks that you see at the top of the ladder. Like, I think that's great. That's really healthy because it means there's no one right way to play the game, that you can be creative and try some new things. And, we put out a card of the month every month as a reward card, and we try and put out cards that encourage people to try new deck archetypes or maybe push an underplayed deck archetype by giving them another tool that makes that deck better. Certainly with the Fall of the Dark Brotherhood, man, there's a ton of cards in this thing that people are really going to love when we finish revealing the full set about expanding new archetypes, what the Dark Brotherhood is all about. It adds a new ability word called Slay that encourages you for using your creatures to attack and kill enemy creatures, and you get added benefit. So we're really excited to see like all of the different kinds of decks that this set is going to spawn.
Legends is also sort of part of this Bethesda Net launcher kind of strategy that you're employing. Got Fallout Shelter as well. You got some other things.
The creation kit.
Starting to build out. What can you say of that and that sort of strategy ahead?
Well, for us, it's definitely a big help to have a platform that's our own platform where we could make changes whenever we want and not have to rely on somebody else in terms of like, well, I want to change this or I want to update this or that, and to allow folks to more seamlessly move between games. Quake Champions, is another thing that we're looking forward to getting on Bethesda Net, and we want to continue to grow it so that there's a benefit and an ability to move between between games and to have this more cohesive experience. So one of the things that we're doing that in the future we'd like to be able to do a lot better and easier is if you buy the full Dark Brotherhood story, you get a free mount in the PC or Mac version of Elder Scrolls Online. It's Elder Scrolls Online and Elder Scrolls Legends. Like, there should be more synergy and like rewards if you're playing both of those games. Like, you play Legends and you unlock stuff in ESO, or you play ESO and you unlock stuff in Legends. And having a platform like BNet and integrating that, I think, makes that a better experience for players. That if you're interested in multiple things, that you're getting rewarded across our games, and allowing you, in the case of Legends, what it does is when you create a Bethesda Net account, your collection goes with you on whatever device you're playing on. So I'm playing on my iPad. I was playing on my iPad on vacation, and I wasn't paying attention, and my battery died in the middle of a match. And I quickly flipped open my laptop and logged into Legends on my laptop and picked up the game right where I left off, because Bethesda Net says, I don't care what device you're playing on. Like, you logged off, you logged back on. Like, here's where you left off, and I could keep playing. So Bethesda Net allows us to say you can go from your PC to your iPad to your Android tablet to your phone back to your PC, and we'll keep track of your collection wherever you go. That's just not something we can do without having our own platform and system.
Does that allow for even more platforms in the future, thinking consoles, things like that as well?
That's more of a, like, can we do it? But sure, I mean, it certainly allows you to take that with you. It does the same thing for mods, right? That you are able to play mods on all of these platforms in part because of Bethesda Net, because Bethesda Net is the platform that is allowing mod creators to make their mods available on Xbox One and PS4 and PC, because there's no other system that does that makes stuff available on all these different platforms. Whether or not we ever do Legends on a console is really more down to, like, what are the development requirements for getting it to work and run well with the controller on a screen, and do we think that's a good spend of our time? But yeah, it would allow you to do that as well on other platforms.
Thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. Good to see you again.